touch someone. Reach out and turn them upside down.
Delicious Tang instant breakfast drink. Do something good for your family.
Why did your milk taste like chalk and your jeans outlast your childhood? If you ever used bacon grease like gold or turned pliers into a TV remote, this one's for you. These were the unspoken signs of growing up poor in the 1970s. Number 1, powdered milk. Why did breakfast in the 70s start with betrayal in a pitcher? It looked like milk, white, smooth, maybe even cold if you were lucky. But one sip and the illusion shattered. Powdered milk didn't taste like dairy. It tasted like someone described milk over the phone. Chalky, thin, and somehow both warm and sad. Still, it poured over every bowl of off-brand cereal with quiet authority. Mom said it tastes the same, but we all knew better. And if you drank it without complaining, that wasn't just breakfast, that was training. But powdered milk wasn't the only thing tough to swallow in the 70s. Because next came something even harder and chewier, that infamous block of government cheese. Number 2, government cheese. How do you slice something that bends your knife but still refuses to melt right? That massive block of government cheese was a mystery wrapped in cardboard. No label, no ingredients, just a dense, rubbery orange brick that somehow ended up in everything. Cold, it chewed like eraser. Hot, it turned into bubbling glue. Still, it stretched casseroles, melted over broccoli, and held grilled sandwiches together like industrial cement. It didn't taste great, but it filled the plate. And in a poor household, that counted for a lot. Every kid knew its weight in the lunchbox. Every mom knew how to make it last. But not every meal was cheesy comfort. Some smelled like a warning and tasted like punishment. Let's talk about liver and onions. Number 3, liver and onions. What dinner made you gag before you even sat down? Liver and onions wasn't food. It was a smell that filled the house like a warning siren. The liver, gray and rubbery, hid under onions that fooled no one. Parents claimed it was healthy. We just knew it was endless. You chewed for what felt like hours. Some kids stuffed it in napkins. Others fed it to the dog, if the dog would take it. Reheated leftovers, even worse. But complaining got you nowhere. You ate it because that's what was for dinner. And maybe, just maybe, it taught you to appreciate peanut butter more than anyone else ever could. Thankfully, not all breakfast memories smelled like punishment. Some smelled like bacon and came in an old coffee can. Number 4, bacon grease in a coffee can. What looked like garbage but cooked like gold. Next to the stove, there it was. An old metal coffee can, dented, greasy, and sacred. Inside, bacon drippings, yesterday's breakfast, saved for tomorrow's survival. No one threw it out. That was flavor. That was economy. You'd scoop it into a pan to fry eggs, crisp potatoes, or even seasoned green beans. The bottom was layered like history, generations of grease, solidified into a timeline of poverty cuisine. Sometimes it smoked. Sometimes it popped. Sometimes it had little bacon bits floating like treasure. It wasn't just fat, it was resourcefulness in a can. And while bacon grease made breakfast better, the cereal you poured it over, well, let's just say it never lived up to the box it didn't come in. Number 5, generic cereal. What crinkled like a trash bag and tasted like one too? You didn't find it in a box, you found it in a sack the size of a small dog, down on the bottom shelf of the grocery store. No mascot, no toy, just a white label, Toasted O's or Corn Crunch. It poured into your bowl with a sound like packing peanuts. Add powdered milk, and it became a soggy mess in seconds. No snap, no crackle, just the pop of disappointment. But it was cheap. And when you asked for name brand cereal, your mom just said, add sugar. You didn't love it, but you ate it. Because in the 70s, breakfast didn't mean fun, it meant full. And if your breakfast wasn't stylish, your jeans definitely weren't either.
You know you can do when you're wearing Toughskins.
Number 6, Toughskins Jeans. What kind of pants could survive a fence, a fall, and still be passed down? Toughskins weren't clothes, they were armor. Bought at Sears, these jeans were stiff, thick, and nearly indestructible. Reinforced knees, weird colors, fabric so rough it could exfoliate your legs. They didn't fade, they didn't soften. You outgrew them long before they wore out, and they'd haunt your little brother next. Walking in them made you sound like sandpaper. Running? Forget it. But parents loved them. Cheap, durable, and practically bulletproof. You couldn't tear them, but recess still tore your pride. And if your jeans weren't flexible, neither was your TV. Because when that channel knob broke, you didn't replace it, you grabbed the pliers. Number 7, TV with pliers for a remote. What did you reach for when the remote didn't exist? And the knob broke in half? When the channel dial snapped off, and it always did, you didn't panic. You grabbed the pliers, or maybe a wrench, or even a fork. Anything that could twist that stubborn metal stem. Changing the channel became a game of precision. You'd turn slowly, clunk, clunk, and hope the picture didn't roll like a slot machine. If someone walked near the antenna, chaos. We wrapped it in foil. We struck antenna balancing poses like TV yoga, all to see Bob Barker without static. TV watching wasn't passive. It was effort, teamwork, and luck. But after all that, it wasn't over, because now it was time to get dressed in someone else's past. Number 8, hand-me-downs. What's worse than out of style? Out of size, out of shape, and out of options. Hand-me-downs didn't come from stores. They came from cousins, friends, and neighbors, with wrinkles, weird stains, and that attic smell no laundry could fix. Too big, you'll grow into it. Too small, stretch it. And if the name inside the collar wasn't yours, that's still a good coat. You didn't complain. You smiled and said thank you, even if the shoes flopped and the sleeves didn't match. School was survival. Blend in, joke it off, or just keep your head down. But home wasn't always better, especially when warming up meant piling on layers, not turning a dial. Because in a poor kid's house, the thermostat wasn't for comfort. It was off limits. Number 9, thermostat rules. What household item was more protected than the family car? In a poor home during the 70s, the thermostat wasn't just off limits. It was sacred. Turning it up without permission? That was rebellion. Some families even taped notes over it. Do not touch. You could be freezing, fingers stiff, breath visible, but mom would just say, put on another sweater, then another, then maybe a blanket and the dog. Warmth didn't come from the heater. It came from layers, quilts, and sibling body heat. The thermostat was for emergencies only, company, flu, or both. And if your toes went numb, tough luck. That's what socks were for. But speaking of numb toes, your shoes didn't help much, especially when they had holes big enough to whistle. Number 10, One-Ply toilet paper. What was thinner than your patience and rougher than your jeans? Toilet paper in a poor household wasn't soft, quilted luxury. It was one-ply misery. Thin as tracing paper, scratchy like sandpaper, and so flimsy you had to fold it 6 times just to feel safe. Sometimes it was gray, sometimes off-white. Occasionally, it had splinters. Yes, actual wood bits. Using it was a gamble. Blowing your nose with it was war. But nobody questioned it. That was just toilet paper. You made do. And if you dared complain, you'd hear, it does the job. Barely. Still, at least it was your role, because next we're talking about something you didn't even get to choose. Your backpack, if you can call it that. Number 11, paper bag backpacks. What carried your books, your lunch, and your dignity until it rained? If you didn't have a real backpack, you used what was available, a brown paper grocery bag, 2 cutout handles, a name written in marker, and a whole lot of hope. It held your books, gym shoes, maybe even leftovers, until the bottom gave out. One rainy walk to school, and suddenly your homework was confetti. We patched them with tape, stapled the sides, even double-bagged like it was science class. Teachers understood. Kids didn't laugh, because they had one last week. It wasn't cool, it wasn't sturdy, but it worked. Barely. And after a day of hauling paper and pride, you came home hungry, praying dinner came hot, fast, and frozen in a foil tray. Number 12, TV dinner trays. What meal came in sections, cooked unevenly, and still felt like a treat? TV dinners weren't gourmet. They were survival disguised as luxury. A foil tray with divided compartments, Salisbury steak, mushy peas, watery mashed potatoes, and that magic brownie that was always burnt on the edges and raw in the middle. It wasn't the food, it was the feeling. Sitting cross-legged on shag carpet, tray table unfolded, cartoons humming in the background. It felt like your own private restaurant. Cleanup was easy, expectations were low, and for one night you didn't hear, "Finish your liver." Just heat, eat, and feel rich. But that warm feeling didn't last long, especially when your shoes let in every cold breeze like they had built-in air conditioning. Number 13, shoes with cardboard soles. What do you wear when your shoes have more ventilation than support? When the soles wore thin, and they always did, you didn't get new shoes. You got cereal boxes, cut into foot shapes, slipped inside like DIY insoles. They worked until it rained. Then the cardboard turned to mush, your socks got soaked, and every step squished like a wet sponge. We dry them on the radiator, replace them the next day, and keep moving. Because new shoes weren't for comfort, they were for Christmas or growth spurts. You learned to walk light, avoid puddles, and never run in gym class. Pride soaked slower than your socks, and if your feet were cold, your house didn't help. Not when the windows had towels instead of curtains. Number 14, towel curtains. What fluttered in the window but was never sold in the curtain aisle? If you grew up poor, your curtains probably didn't match. And they definitely weren't curtains. They were bath towels, beach towels, sometimes even old sheets with cartoon prints from years past. Hung up with thumbtacks or safety pins, they didn't block much light, but they did block just enough pride from leaking out. They faded, they frayed, they smelled faintly of detergent and desperation, but nobody cared because they worked. You didn't invite people over, you didn't explain. You just pulled the towel shut and went on with your day. And when dinner rolled around, it wasn't about setting the table, it was about making something out of next to nothing. Number 15, making dinner from nothing. What do you call a meal made from leftovers, prayers, and pure determination? Dinner wasn't planned, it was invented. One can of beans, some old rice, half a hot dog, and whatever was in the back of the fridge, that was dinner. Maybe a ketchup sandwich, maybe mystery casserole. Either way, you ate it. There were no seconds, unless it was leftovers. Again, we reused foil, scraped pots clean, and stretched ingredients like magic. You didn't ask, "What is this?" You just ate, and we're thankful. Because in homes where money ran out before the month did, dinner wasn't about flavor, it was about trying. And somehow those thrown together meals, they're the ones we remember most. These weren't just signs of poverty, they were signs of strength, of love, grit, and doing the best we could. If any of this brought back memories, we'd love to hear your story in the comments. Because when we share these moments, we keep them, and the strength behind them, alive.